Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Unstuck Movement, True Testimonies of Breakthrough. I'm your host, Rob Z. Today we have the powerful Ken Kunken with us on the podcast. And Ken, I love to jump in right off the bat with a powerful question. And I love to find out what great quotes people love and people like to recite and live by in their life. A great quote that you gave me was, "Some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream of things that never were and say, why not?" What an awesome quote. And I want to know what this means to you. So what did you dream of that never was, and you turned it into a reality?
Well, Rob, just so you and the viewers of your show know, I had a spinal cord injury in 1970. And as a result, I'm a quadriplegic. I'm almost totally paralyzed below the shoulders. I have just a little bit of movement in my left arm, nothing in my fingers or my wrist. And on the right side of my body, I could just shrug my shoulder a bit. So what I dreamt of that never were is that most people gave very little hope that I'd ever be able to lead a useful, productive, rewarding, or happy life. I dreamt that I could still do that. And I worked hard to make that come true. And I'm proud to say that I have.
I love it. Amazing. And I can't wait to dive into this story, into your story, to find out how you have turned that into a productive and amazing life for yourself. So I just want to welcome everybody here before we get rolling. This is the Unstuck Movement, right? So this platform, I created this to have these true testimonies of breakthrough to help you, the listeners, break those chains that are holding you back in your life personally and professionally. We're sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. Over 400 heart-centered servant leaders from around the world who are helping each other grow and scale in their industries, in their fields of expertise. And also, I'd love to encourage you, if you're somebody who is the go-to authority in your field, you want to be the expert, the known expert at what you do, and you want to leave a lasting impact on people's lives and get paid what you're truly worth and create incredible connections for yourself, I encourage you to launch your own platform. You can launch your podcast with me with our Pro Podcaster Academy. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com. Ken Kunken broke his neck playing football in 1970, leaving him almost totally paralyzed. Despite this, he earned 3 Ivy League degrees, became a nationally certified rehabilitation counselor, and served for over 40 years as a Nassau County assistant district attorney. And I'm honored to have you here today, Ken. When this all happened back in 1970, where were you at that point in your life? You were playing football, and what was your trajectory? Where did you see your life going during that period of time?
Well, that was early in my junior year at Cornell University. And at the time, I was majoring in industrial engineering. So I was pointing towards either becoming an industrial engineer, or I knew many people that were studying engineering later went on to a career in either business or law. So I was looking at all 3 possibilities.
And when things changed for you on the football field, and it happened on the field, correct?
Correct. I broke my neck making a tackle on a kickoff. It was in a lightweight football game against Columbia University.
That's pretty rare to have happen. I can't think of many times where that's an injury that serious has happened on the football field. That's pretty rare, right?
It is pretty rare. In fact, it was unusual, one, that it happened, and then unusual that I even survived the injury. Soon after I was hurt, the doctor didn't think that I was going to live through the week. So it was very rare. And of course, one of the problems was when I tackled the ball carrier, I did it by leading with my head. I hit him with my head, making the initial contact. That's really, really dangerous. And obviously, there's more education about that now, and people are taught you never tackle with your head first. You know, it used to be called spear tackling or spearing. People, you shouldn't do that now, certainly. And that's one of the reasons why you don't see it as often now.
And I know this was a long time ago, back in 1970, but what was your mindset when this all happened? Because that had to be something that, stops you dead in your tracks, obviously. Now, clearly, they weren't even expecting you to to live past that week, and you've made it, and you've created an incredible life for yourself. But where was your head at in those first couple of months? Because talking about the unstuck movement, right? What a place to be stuck in your life. How did you dig yourself out of that hole?
Okay. It was really difficult. And I was really fortunate that I had an incredible amount of support from my family and my friends. And they continually encouraged me to say that while I still had my head, there's a lot I could still do, even if I don't have movement below my neck. So they encouraged me to go forward and that there was still a lot I can do. And they helped a lot in getting me through a severe depression that I was in at the time. And I owe it all to them for encouraging me to go forward. They basically assured me they'd act as my arms and legs to make sure I could still do everything I wanted to do.
Oh man, that's incredible to have those people around you to support you at such a pivotal and difficult time in your life. How long did that depression last for? How long were you kind of stuck in that place?
Oh, it was a long, long time. I mean, for the first 9 months that I was in the hospital, I was severely depressed. And
Mhm.
I started to feel better when I was able to finally be discharged from the hospital and I went back to school, and that helped a lot. But I was still depressed after that. And I think one of the things that really helped was when I eventually got my first job. I worked as a vocational rehabilitation counselor here on Long Island, where I was working for a phenomenal company called Abilities Incorporated, which is now part of what's called the Viscardi Center. And it helped an awful lot to get me out of my depression, to know now I was able to make a difference in other people's lives because I was working as a vocational counselor, helping other individuals. That helped a great deal.
Yeah, so many times we get outside of ourself and serving others. I had somebody on the podcast a little while ago that told this story that they were on the edge of suicide on Thanksgiving night, and somebody from their church had asked them to come down and help during Thanksgiving, just help seat people, help greet people come in the door. And during that Thanksgiving service, this guy realized the gift that he had of connecting with people and communicating with them, and it gave him meaning and purpose. And he never would have had that if he was sitting at home by himself. He actually was going to end his life that night, but because he got outside of himself and started serving, it changed everything for him. I'm curious for you, as you started to do that and you started to serve others, what gifts that you maybe didn't know that you had, or maybe gifts that you didn't use fully effectively, started to show up during that period?
I was really surprised, Rob, that so many people took an interest in my story and what I was doing. And it wasn't long after I was hurt that people started asking me to speak in front of groups and organizations to tell them what I was doing with my life. Because I was being told that what I was doing was helping to motivate and inspire people to do more with their lives. Now, that really surprised me. Before my injury, I would describe myself as a bit of an introvert. I rarely spoke in front of groups. In fact, in these big lectures that I would be attending, I would be the person that would sit in the very last row and never raise my hand and try and draw as least amount of attention to myself as I could. And following my injury, I found myself now appearing before hundreds of people at a time, giving inspirational and motivational talks to large groups. So I really changed a lot since my injury.
So do you remember what year it was that you started speaking on stage and talking to groups and things like that?
I sure do. It was in 1972. Now, remember, I got hurt in 1970. I finally went back to college in 1971. And in 1972, I had been asked to give the graduation speech at Dryden High School, which was a high school in upstate New York. And I was shocked that anybody even knew about me to ask me to give that talk. And here I was, I found myself speaking in front of about 1,000 people. And soon after that, I was asked to speak at Ithaca College to their physical therapy students, to Cornell Med School to their first year of medical students, And since then, I've given a lot of motivational talks to all sorts of groups and organizations.
That's incredible that 2 years after the accident, 2 years after the injury,
Right?
people are noticing. I guess it's you stand out. Is that what it is? Well, how did you start getting noticed like that? Because it must have been such an obvious drive and ambition from somebody who was a paraplegic that like inspired others. How did that start to transpire? That's incredible.
You know, when I was first in the hospital, first injured, I was asked to testify before a United States Senate Health Subcommittee chaired by Senator Edward Kennedy
Hmm.
concerning the healthcare crisis in America. Because injuries such as mine, there was rarely an insurance policy that would cover that kind of injury.
Hmm.
So I was asked to testify before Senator Kennedy's Senate Health Subcommittee, and that testimony got a lot of publicity. And the reason why it got so much publicity was that my father testified as well. And my father was an insurance agent, and he testified as an expert that there really wasn't an insurance policy out there that would cover an injury such as mine. And that was the testimony the Senate most needed to hear from. And it was 8 days after my testimony that Senator Kennedy sent me a glass paperweight in the mail that had an inscription on it that the senator said his late brother Robert Kennedy liked very much. And that was the quotation, "Some men see things as they are and say why. I dream of things that never were and say why not." And that's where I got the quotation from. And that's why I titled my book, "I Dream of Things That Never Were."
I love that. Going back to your family, I'm really curious about how your family showed up for you, because I think so many times in life, our family really can dictate how our life turns out, for the good or the bad. What were the characteristics, the traits of your family, maybe before the accident and after the accident? Did they show up differently after you had this accident? And what was it about them that drove you forward the way that they did?
Well, I think the best way of answering that is to tell you a bit about my family from the day I was born. My family faced challenges virtually from the day I was born. Less than a month after I was born, my mother died from polio.
Hmm.
That was during the polio epidemic in 1950. I have a brother, Steve, who's 2 years older than me, that contracted polio at the same time. Fortunately, his was a mild case and he recovered, but unfortunately, my mother passed away. So at a very early age, my family had to deal with tragedy and had to bond together to help each other. And I'm talking about grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, who all came together to help us and continued to remain very close. We're a very close-knit family. Following my injury, whether it be my grandparents, my aunts, uncles, cousins, brother, my sister, I have a younger sister, everybody got together to help me do what I've been able to do.
It's inspiring to hear, and it's interesting. This topic comes up so many times on the podcast, but through tragedy, people come together. Through tragedy, people show up differently. Through tragedy, you see people's true colors, and people do things you might never expect them to do. So it sounds like just through the tragedy of your mother dying from polio, your family had to band together and had to come together, and that made them stronger, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, not long after my mother died, my aunt contracted multiple sclerosis.
Hmm.
So she needed help as well. And, I watched as I was growing up, my grandmother helping my aunt with her everyday needs and other people in the family helping out. And as I say, we grew up knowing the importance of family and helping others in need.
I'm curious what your answer would be to this. Say you're in a family where that doesn't happen. They don't work well as a cohesive unit, but you want to be somebody who inspires that in your family or in, the people that are closest to you. What would you recommend somebody does to inspire that in others? Maybe it's a way that you show up for people.
Well, I think what's important is there's another saying that I like a lot, and it's basically, while you cannot always control what happens to you, you can control how you react to it. And I think that applies to family as well. Even if your family is not as close-knit as you'd like it to be, that doesn't mean you can still not offer your help. Do everything you can to help other family members or other people in general. And the fact that some people may not be as receptive to it as you'd like in terms of paying back with help that you'd like to receive or see them give, the fact is, it's still your choice, your decision, how you're going to give your life and how you're going to help others.
Yeah, it's your own personal decision. You have a choice. It might not seem like it at the time, but you have a choice in the matter, in everything in your life. A choice in your attitude and how you show up. Because attitude's everything. This attitude that you have now, I can imagine that after the accident and the depression that you were in, your attitude was completely different. But it seems like the attitude you have now is one of gratitude, I would assume.
Right.
How do you, on a daily basis, how do you keep that alive and thriving?
Okay. Well, it got to the point where I was receiving so much help and support from so many people, whether it be my family or close friends. It got to the point where I basically felt I'd be letting them down if I didn't do everything I could do to make the most of my life after seeing how hard they were working to help me do that. So with that in mind, I knew I had to do my best to help others and to work hard and doing everything I could do. And I tried to project a positive attitude. I thought that was important because I found, one, people respond more to positivity. And when they see somebody who is fun to be around, that they feel good to be around, than somebody who always has a negative attitude or is always depressed and unhappy. And I found that that encouraged more people to come into my life and to want to help and to give me the opportunity to help others.
Would you say that is your legacy, or how do you define legacy for yourself?
Legacy for myself, well, I'm proud to say now I have my own close-knit family. Just so your viewers know, I'm married. I got married in 2003 when I was in my 50s. And in 2005, through in vitro fertilization, after I had been paralyzed for more than 30 years, through in vitro fertilization, I was able to become the father of triplets.
Wow.
I have triplet sons, 3 sons. They're now going to be 20 years old later this month, and they're all sophomores at 3 separate colleges in upstate New York. My legacy are my boys, my 3 sons, doing great. They're going to be doing great things for so many different people.
Absolutely incredible. I love that. That is amazing, Ken. That is so cool. We're going to take a quick break, 60 seconds, to shout out the sponsor of the podcast. When we come back, though, people feel limited in so many different ways. People have lots of limiting beliefs, right? Even if physically they're not limited. And so many times it's so hard to overcome those things. I'm curious the advice you give to somebody who is feeling limited somewhere in their life. We'll talk about that when we come back. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, Move the needle in your business. More clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line. And of course, grow your circle and your network like never before. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JASCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
So when we talk about limits, right, it seems like you might be somebody who's limitless through the things that you've gone through, and you can see past roadblocks. What do you say to somebody who seems to be limited somewhere in their life, feeling like they've been limited by society or limited by their own physical ability or mental ability? What do you say to them?
I say that they need to challenge themselves. There's an awful lot people can still do if they work hard and have the right attitude, right? Don't listen to naysayers. Don't listen to people that tell you it's just too difficult or that you can't do something. What's important is how you feel about yourself and the desire you have to achieve and to remain motivated and to help others. I find the best way of you maintaining your own motivation is knowing you're making a difference in the lives of others. And once you're convinced you're doing that, I think you'll strive to be the best person you can possibly be. And I think when you look back at what your life has been like, one of the things to measure it by is whether you've done everything you can do to make not only your life better, but the lives of those around you better as well. And I think that'll make you feel so much better about yourself, and you'll help so many more people along the way by doing that.
Very true. Can't go wrong with that. That's some solid advice, some solid wisdom. How do you find yourself getting better on a daily basis? How do you push yourself?
Well, one of the ways I do it is by seeing the progress my boys are making. As I said, they're now sophomores in 3 separate colleges. And I've tried to set an example for them of there's an awful lot everybody can do as long as they work hard and have the right attitude and strive to not only be the best they can be, but to help others be the best others can be as well. And by being a positive example to my children, I feel that that's the best thing I could do on a daily basis. And I strive to maintain that type of positivity and that type of encouragement and example to my children. That keeps me going on a daily basis.
And did you just recently release your book?
Yeah, well, it's been out now about a year.
Okay.
It's called I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story. And it's been out about a year. It's also available in a Kindle version. But recently, we've recorded an audio version that's supposed to come out probably in about a month. One of the things that I've been doing as well is trying to help other people that have disabilities. As I indicated, my first job was working as a vocational rehabilitation counselor at the Viscardi Center. I'm now a member of their board of directors, and I still try and do everything I can to help, one, other people with disabilities do more with their lives, but two, to encourage employers to hire somebody with a disability, because people with disabilities are incredible workers and could make a difference in a lot of people's lives.
If they want to get the book, it's on Amazon. So by the way, if you're listening or watching, go to Amazon, search I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story. Ken, with the book, I'm sure what we're talking about right now is a major theme, but is there something powerful, impactful in the book that we haven't talked about yet here on the podcast?
Well, there have been so many times that people have tried to discourage me from doing certain things because they just felt that, you have a disability. It would just be too difficult to do it. And I think my message is don't set limited expectations for people, because sometimes when you do that, people's performance often rises and falls based upon what others expect of them. So if you keep your expectations high, that will help others do more with their lives, as well as keeping expectations high for yourselves. When I was first hurt in the hospital, it seemed the best the medical professionals thought I would ever be able to do would be to someday sell magazine subscriptions over the telephone. Now, I was convinced there was more that I can do. But unfortunately, many of the patients around me were not doing very much with their lives. And I believe a lot of that had to do with the fact that the medical personnel was not encouraging them to do more, did not believe that they could actually do more. You know, when I was able to graduate from school, I think some of the people that were most surprised were my own doctors, nurses, and therapists. I really think they were not of the mindset that there was an awful lot people could do despite their disabilities. And I think the more you see people with disabilities out in public, the more people gain an understanding of how much you can do. See, I had the added misfortune of being injured about 20 years before the Americans with Disabilities Act took effect. So most public places were not very accessible back then. Now they are, and that makes a big, big difference.
You know, it's really interesting because I'm of this mindset. When you start on a personal development, personal growth journey, you don't have a choice but to keep going. At least that's how I feel about it. And it seems like that was how you felt about it too. Like you got yourself out of that funk, out of that depression, and you started growing. What choice do you have but to keep going? What's turning around and shutting that off going to do? And it's amazing. You hear the doctors or the people that may have worked with you who didn't think that you could do these things, and they would not encourage you to try. And it's interesting to think, like, why would somebody encourage you not to try something that you want to do? Even if they don't think you can do it, why not encourage you to go do it? And I think it's a lesson for us to always remember, especially with our kids and people that are close to us in our lives, always be encouraging the people in your life to go after the things that they want, even if it might seem ridiculous to you, because nothing's impossible. You know, if you have that belief system.
Sometimes I think people are worried that they don't want to see you fail. They don't want to see you go through what may be an added depression of you trying something that's difficult and not succeeding at it. And sometimes they think they're doing you a favor by saying, you know, by not encouraging you to take that extra step or try something that is extremely hard to achieve. I feel just the opposite. I think unless you set your goals high, you're not going to reach to the highest level you could do, you know? And I think it's important to tackle challenges, not shy away from them. In order to be the best you can do, you've got to push yourself. You know, I think we all have a certain innate ability to, you know, to function in the outside world and do certain things on your own. But I think we also have basically an inner strength that helps you rise to the occasion and tackle almost insurmountable odds. It's how you use that inner strength that will make the difference between someone who is good and someone who is great. And I think there's an awful lot everybody can do if they push themselves.
Very true. And you don't know what those reserves are in you until you're tested to use them, right?
Absolutely.
And I really think life is created to be an adventure and to go on an adventure. And in an adventure, you don't know what's coming next. You're not sure what it is, but you know you have to keep going. I'm curious for you. You said you did a lot of very difficult things. And I mean, along that list, a degree in engineering, 2 master's degrees, nationally certified rehabilitation counselor. You provided vocational and placement counseling for severely disabled individuals. Also went to law school, and you were the assistant district attorney, becoming deputy bureau chief. What of all those incredible accomplishments, it would be difficult for anybody to accomplish. What was the most difficult? Which one did you struggle with the most?
Well, they were each difficult when I was doing them, but I think the thing that was most difficult was when I went back to Cornell. It was shortly after my injury. I had gotten out of the hospital just 9 days before I returned to school. And at the time, Cornell was one of the most inaccessible campuses I could have chosen to go back to. I mean, every building basically had steps in front of them, and there was not one ramp or curb cut on the entire campus. Just to give you an example, one of the classes that I took, which met 3 times a week, had 16 steps in front of it. And my dorm room had 10 steps just to get in. So on my first day of classes, I had to be either pulled up or bounced down close to 100 steps just to attend my first day. So when you talk about what was the most difficult, I mean, getting the class was a major accomplishment in itself. Then trying to sit through the difficult engineering courses and try and concentrate, it was extremely difficult. And, I really questioned whether I made the right decision. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to make it into the right decision. Whether it was or not at the time, I'm going to make it the right decision.
Who helped move you from class to class?
Well, I had a personal care attendant that I'd hired during the year, and I unfortunately had to change attendants many times. But I was not able to use an electric wheelchair there because of all the obstacles. So normally it would be my personal care attendant, but fellow classmates would help as well. I mean, I wasn't even able to take notes. So I used to give carbon paper to a fellow classmate. They'd put it under their notes, and I'd get a copy of their notes.
Oh, wow.
So between my attendants and my classmates and fraternity brothers and football teammates, I had a lot of people helping me.
Ken, that is incredible. It's incredible how people come together. What is the biggest lesson you learned during that period in your life? Because the thing that comes to my mind is like the just the love of other people, how much people care, and how people can come together when they really have to or they really want to. What was a big lesson, your takeaway from that period of your life?
That people really do want to help you. That I was being stared at almost everywhere I went. And I had to convince myself I'm being stared at just because people are, curious to know how I am able to function in this situation. It certainly wasn't out of any type of animosity or ill feelings or anything. People really wanted to help. They just weren't sure how they can help me. But I knew eventually that the people that were looking at me, with certain curiosity, were because they really wanted to help me and just weren't sure how to go about it. And let me just give you another example. When I first went back to Cornell, I asked if the university could at least put in a ramp to my dorm so I wouldn't have to go up and down the 10 steps every time I went in and out of the building. Now, at the time, the university, they weren't trying to be mean or insensitive. But they originally denied my request for a ramp because they said they'd have to remove 2 bushes to put in a ramp there. And they were worried that students might protest if they removed the bushes.
What?
Well, obviously, that was not the case. Students not only wouldn't have protested, they would have done anything to help me. And I'm convinced of that. And once the ramp was put in, more people wanted to use the ramp than walking up and down the steps. I think that was a real lesson for everybody there. And what happened was the way I got the ramp put in was we had a fire drill. And at a fire drill, of course, everybody has to evacuate the building. Yeah. And the next day I was asked by the administration how I got out. And I said, well, I got out by my aide bouncing me down the steps. But I felt bad because I knew I slowed up the other students exiting. Within 2 weeks, they put in a ramp. And it was clear they did that for the other students' safety, not for my convenience, but that was fine with me. At least not only did I have a ramp to use, but everybody benefited by it. And I think the more people see that these modifications to make things more accessible help everybody.
Yeah. For anybody watching or listening who has somebody with a disability in their life, what is the most important thing to understand, and what is the best way to help them?
We all have the same needs, desires, wants as everybody, whether you have a disability or don't have a disability. We just have to find a different way of doing things. And the best way of helping somebody, firstly, if somebody can communicate with you, is to ask them, What do you need? What can I do to help? And the person can tell them how they can help if they want, that type of help or assistance. Other times, just making it known that you're willing to help, so that even if I don't need help at the moment, I know there are people that I can turn to for help or advice.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, or advice, I want to make it clear that what I may be looking for is advice, not somebody telling me this is what you need to do or have to do. It should ultimately be the person's decision. I worked very hard to make my decisions the right decisions. But if I would have just done what other people told me you should do, I don't know if I would have worked as hard to make their decisions the correct ones. When they were my decisions, I worked really hard to make them the correct ones.
That's a really good point. That's a tenet of leadership. If you're going to be a great leader, it's helping other people come to their own conclusions, and especially if you're managing people, helping those people, bringing them into the fold so that they collaborate on plans. They collaborate on the things that they need to do. They're the ones who make the decisions on here's what I need to do. And you sign off on those decisions, but allowing somebody to come up with an idea of here's what I need to do is always going to work so much better than you telling somebody what to do. Like you're saying, somebody has an idea or a best laid plan for you. The thing you decide to do is going to give you the motivation to do it, not them telling you to do it. So that's really, really great advice. I love that. Ken, as we come to the close of this episode, very inspirational, and I'm sure you've heard that throughout your life, but I really thank you just for the work that you do, because I think it's really, really important. The discipline, the drive, the focus that you have, awesome just to see it. And I love to tell these sorts of stories. I want to encourage people, once again, go to Amazon, get Ken's book, I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story. And also, if you want to be the authority in your space, you want to launch your podcast, go to robzwentz.com right now. Is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with before we sign off?
Well, not only do I have an incredible group of 3 wonderful, wonderful children, I've got the most incredible wife anybody could ever hope to have. Her name is Anna. She's actually sitting to my right, just right off camera now. And thanks to Anna, I've been able to not only do all the things I've wanted to do these last 21 years that we've been married, but also she inspires me with the love, the drive, the desire, and everything she does to make me a better person. I've been really fortunate. I'm leading a really happy life thanks to my wife, Anna, and my 3 children, Joseph, James, and Timothy.
Oh, God bless, man. I wish I'd brought this up earlier in the conversation, but what are some of the most important things to have a long-lasting, successful, and loving relationship with somebody?
The best thing is to be understanding, to be helpful to each other, to do everything you can do to not only understand what the other person's feelings are, but to try and help them do everything that they want to do, and to be amenable to criticisms, to suggestions, and to do your best to be amicable and to display a positive attitude, because people want to do more for you and help you more when you have a positive attitude and you show that you're motivated to do everything you can do to be the best person you can be.
Good stuff, Ken. Thank you so much. And I just want to encourage people, this is what it's all about. Stories of breakthrough. That's why we do this. So what is the breakthrough that you need in your life? Find it today. Take action today to build towards your breakthrough. This is another true testimony of breakthrough. Until next time, this has been the Unstuck Movement. All right.